When fans thought the scandal surrounding Sam Heughan and Dakota Johnson could not possibly escalate any further, the Scottish actor delivered a revelation so explosive that it sent Hollywood and the Outlander fandom into chaos once again. After weeks of speculation following Dakota's tearful confession that she was pregnant with his child, Sam broke his silence in the most controversial way imaginable, by admitting that he would not be keeping the baby. The admission came during a tense press appearance that had already drawn an overwhelming media presence. Reporters shouted questions, flashes from cameras lit the room, and the tension was palpable. For days, fans and critics alike had been waiting to hear from Sam, hoping he would acknowledge Dakota's pregnancy with a show of support or, at the very least, compassion. Instead, what they got was a bombshell that left the audience gasping. "This is not a decision I've taken lightly," Sam said, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "I know the world has questions, and I know there is speculation, but the truth is this: I cannot keep this baby. My life, my career, and everything I've built are not in a place where I can make that commitment." The room fell silent. For a man whose image had long been built around honor, romance, and the steadfast devotion of Jamie Fraser, the words landed like a hammer blow. Fans who had always admired Sam's discretion were suddenly confronted with a darker, more complicated side of the actor they thought they knew. Almost immediately, the confession ignited outrage. Social media exploded with fury as hashtags like #SamRefuses, #BabyBombshell, and #HeughanHeartbreak trended worldwide. "He's not just refusing the baby," one user tweeted. "He's refusing Dakota. He's refusing responsibility." Others called him cold, calculating, and even cruel. The backlash was swift, and in many corners, merciless. But there were also voices, quieter, but present, that defended him. Some argued that Sam was simply being honest about his limitations and refusing to bow to public pressure. "He's human," a supporter wrote. "Not everyone is ready to become a father, and it's better he admits that than pretend." Yet even those voices were drowned out by the tidal wave of anger that swept across the fandom. Part of what made the revelation so incendiary was the contrast between Dakota's emotional vulnerability and Sam's apparent detachment. Just days earlier, Dakota had broken down in tears, confessing that her pregnancy came from a secret night with Sam. Her raw honesty had painted her as a woman caught in circumstances beyond her control, while Sam's delayed response only magnified the imbalance. When he finally spoke, instead of offering comfort or support, he declared his refusal, a decision that left Dakota appearing even more isolated in the public eye. Entertainment outlets wasted no time framing the story as betrayal. Headlines blared, "Sam Heughan turns his back on Dakota's baby," and "Outlander star refuses fatherhood in stunning admission." Tabloids dissected his every word, speculating about the motivations behind his decision. Was it fear of scandal? A desire to protect his brand? Or was it simply an unwillingness to accept the responsibility of fatherhood? For fans, the betrayal felt personal. Sam had always cultivated an image of integrity, often speaking about loyalty, honor, and respect. Many had projected those values onto his private life, assuming he would embody them off-screen as well as on. His refusal shattered that illusion. Online forums filled with anguished posts. "He's nothing like Jamie Fraser. We've been idolizing a fantasy, not the real man." Industry insiders also weighed in. Some PR strategists called his statement a catastrophic misstep. "There are ways to handle sensitive situations," one expert explained. "This was not it. By framing it as a refusal, he comes across as cold and unfeeling. In the court of public opinion, that's deadly." Others suggested that Sam's choice of words might have been deliberate, a calculated attempt to draw a firm line and move forward. But even if that was the case, the damage was already done. Meanwhile, Dakota's silence in the aftermath spoke volumes. Paparazzi captured her looking visibly distraught, avoiding questions as she moved through Los Angeles with dark sunglasses shielding her tear-stained face. The contrast between her heartbreak and Sam's blunt admission only fueled the narrative of abandonment. Talk shows replayed clips of her breakdown alongside Sam's statement, framing it as a tragic story of a woman left to bear the weight alone. By the end of the day, Sam's confession had morphed into a global scandal. What should have been a private decision was now a public spectacle, dissected by millions. And while some still argued that Sam had every right to choose his path, the overwhelming sentiment was one of shock, disappointment, and anger. For Sam Heughan, the bombshell had detonated. Whether he intended it or not, his admission had reshaped his public image in a way that might never be undone. And as fans processed the fallout, one question loomed larger than all others. Had the actor who once embodied the very ideals of love and loyalty just destroyed his own legacy with a single, devastating confession? The fallout from Sam Heughan's shocking admission spread like wildfire, engulfing not only his career but also Dakota Johnson, Katrina Balfe, and the broader Hollywood machine. What began as a private revelation spiraled into one of the most polarizing scandals of the year, with everyone scrambling to take a side. For Dakota Johnson, the impact was immediate and devastating. Just days after her emotional breakdown in which she confessed the pregnancy came from a secret night with Sam, she now had to face the brutal reality of his refusal. Paparazzi captured her emerging from her home in Los Angeles, her face hidden behind dark sunglasses, visibly shaken. Gossip outlets splashed photos across front pages with captions like, "Abandoned Dakota," and "Heartbreak in Hollywood." To the world, she became the image of a woman betrayed, left to carry not only a child but also the weight of scandal. Friends close to Dakota reportedly described her as crushed and deeply hurt by Sam's words. She never expected him to reject the idea of fatherhood so publicly, one insider shared. It wasn't just about the baby. It was about loyalty, about standing by her in this moment. Instead, he distanced himself, and that broke her. Sympathy began pouring in from fans and fellow celebrities, many of whom rallied to her side. Actresses, musicians, and activists posted messages of support on social media, framing Dakota as the victim of an all-too-familiar Hollywood story. A woman left to face consequences while the man walked away. Meanwhile, Katrina Balfe once again found herself involuntarily swept into the storm. Her long-standing on-screen partnership with Sam meant that her name was automatically dragged into the headlines. Tabloids ran speculative pieces like, "What does Katrina think of Sam's baby decision?" and "Outlander star silent amid co-stars scandal." Paparazzi hounded her at public appearances, while fans dissected every glance and every smile for hidden meaning. In online forums, some supporters argued that Katrina must be devastated, while others insisted she had no involvement at all. Regardless of the truth, the media's obsession with pairing her into Sam's scandal only deepened the chaos. For fans of Outlander, the scandal was nothing short of earth-shattering. The fandom, once united by devotion to the story of Jamie and Claire, fractured into bitter factions. Some condemned Sam as heartless, swearing they would boycott the final season of the show. Others defended his right to make choices about his own life, no matter how unpopular. The battles played out across Twitter, Facebook groups, and Reddit threads, with thousands of comments flooding every discussion. What had once been a celebration of storytelling had devolved into open warfare over morality, loyalty, and responsibility. Hollywood itself began to turn cold. Industry insiders whispered about projects quietly reconsidering Sam's involvement. A major magazine postponed a planned cover story, citing scheduling conflicts, though sources suggested the scandal was to blame. His whiskey brand, once a point of pride, found itself bombarded with negative comments and calls for boycotts. "Will every bottle come with abandonment?" one critic sneered online. Even his book promotions stalled as interviewers demanded answers about the baby rather than his work. The backlash highlighted how fragile celebrity image truly is. For years, Sam had cultivated a persona of mystery, romance, and dignity. That image had fueled his rise to fame, endeared him to millions, and created a lucrative brand. But with one admission, his refusal to keep the baby, that image crumbled. "This isn't Jamie Fraser," a fan wrote bitterly. "This is just a man who chose himself over everyone else." Yet amid the condemnation, a few defended him. "It takes courage to admit you're not ready," one supporter argued. "Better that than pretending and failing as a father." Some pointed out that Dakota herself had revealed details Sam might have preferred to keep private, and that his reaction was as much about reclaiming his narrative as it was about the child. But those voices were drowned out by the chorus of critics who saw his words as selfish and cruel. By the end of the week, Sam Heughan's bombshell had become more than a scandal. It was a reckoning. It forced fans, critics, and Hollywood insiders to confront the uncomfortable truth about celebrity culture: that the people they idolize are not always the paragons they imagine, and that the illusion of perfection can shatter in an instant. For Dakota, the path forward seemed uncertain. For Katrina, the unwanted attention was relentless. And for Sam, the once unshakable foundation of his career now stood on crumbling ground. The only question that remained was whether he could rebuild, or whether this scandal would mark the beginning of the end for the man who had once embodied loyalty and romance in the eyes of millions.